Namaste. Hello. This is Sonali Gokte, and I'm reading from my mystery novel, The Ripple Effect. I'm reading the chapter 3 now. As they stepped out of the air conditioned premises of QSoft, they were hit by a wall of heat. It was the middle of April, and temperatures had started climbing towards the 40-degree mark. Compared to Delhi's summers, this was quite mild and didn't bother Neil. But he could see that Ishani was feeling the impact, though she didn't say anything about it. As he drove out of the tech park, Neil looked across to Ishani, who had been rather quiet since his cutting remark to her. He opened the conversation with, "Hey there, partner. I hope you're not mad at me." Ishani seemed taken aback by his words, his tone, and looked at him in surprise. Neil smiled and said, "I understand where you're coming from, but we do need to keep our feelings aside." He was relieved to see her smile in response and say, "Yes, of course. You're right. Let's focus on the case." Now that Ishani seemed to be back in the right frame of mind, he turned the conversation back to the case. "So, what do you think of Mr. Seth?" She said. Mr. Seth was quite obviously unhappy with Manjari. He clearly disliked her. "You're right. He is also unhappy that the investigation has been reopened. That could be because he thinks it will hurt QSoft." Ishani was quiet for a while, and when Neil turned to look at her, she seemed deep in thought. "Ishani," he prompted her. "Sorry, I was trying to think back to our conversation with him. To be honest, I am not able to make up my mind about him as a person. He seemed to be spouting lines that he didn't really believe in. Makes me think that he is not a very honest person." She was making a good point. "I don't know if it would help now, but since it's been a while, but could we have people followed, and could we tap their conversations?" I suggested, shadowing to the commissioner. "Yes, it has been a while, but the people, when they know that we are investigating again, might get jittery." Neil liked the way she was thinking, but he wanted to be cautious. Tapping phones is a very sensitive topic, and we cannot do that. He turned to look at Ishani when she said, "Could any of Manjari's co workers actually have murdered her? These are people from a high profile industry, working in a very well known company, earning very high salaries. What reason could they have to murder any of their own?" Neil shook his head and replied, "I'm sure you must have come across some weird cases in the 6 years that you have been working with Abhijit. As they say, truth is stranger than fiction. People are not always rational. Individuals who seem absolutely harmless and docile are capable of some horrible actions and crimes." After tackling the unruly traffic in the IT park, driving got easier as Neil hit the highway. By the way, I forgot to mention that we are going to be able to go through Manjari's personal belongings that police had picked up for investigation. Things like her laptop, her cell phone, some handwritten notes that they got from her flat. Ishani looked surprised and said, "Why are they still available to us? Weren't they returned to her family?" "No one came to complete the formalities and take them back. So, police still has custody over all those." After a few seconds, Ishani asked, What about her flat? Is someone staying there? Can we go and see the place? And who owns it now? Manjari had made a will soon after her parents died 4 years ago, leaving the flat to her aunt and two cousins. But then she made another will just a few months back. As per the latest will, she left the flat to two of her friends. Her aunt is going to the court to dispute the new will. We can discuss this in detail when we meet her advocate, Miss Aditi Kulkarni. Both of them got quiet after this, and Neil switched on the radio. They were now headed to meet Inspector More, who would accompany them to the campsite on the backwaters of Mulshi Dam.